Hello, hello, July. This is our July Sidereal Astrology Forecast. My friend, we've got some shifts happening this month. We've got some retrogrades coming in. We've got about 4 retrogrades coming in. So retrograde season is starting. We've got our full moon in Sagittarius, our new moon in Cancer, and so much more happening in our sky this month. This is your July 2025 Sidereal Astrology overview, where we're going to talk about high level all the things that are happening in July that you want to know, how to work with those energies. And yeah, let's dive in, my friend. I'm super excited. Welcome back to the Cosmic Mystic, where we blend strategy and soul work to help healers, coaches, and conscious leaders build soul aligned businesses that fully support their mission. If we have not met yet, I am Danie C, Muniz, the creator of the Inner Alchemy Method, a 5-stage journey to soul-led sovereignty where deep healing meets embodied leadership. I guide soft-spoken, introverted, high-achieving spiritual women to reclaim their power, embody their truth, and lead from within. I am so blessed and honored to bring these videos to you each week. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, we've got weekly Sidereal Astrology Forecast plus the new Rise and Align series that comes out on Wednesdays that has a teaching helping us embody that leadership, do that deeper soul work, and lead us into a beautiful somatic daily practice, breathwork practice that you can do. And so you can get those here all on the Rise and Align playlist. All right, my friend, let's dive in with my favorite thing to do to kick off these videos, and that is our state of the planets. While I do that, I also want to remind you that there is also a corresponding podcast, the Cosmic Mystic podcast. You can find on all of your favorite platforms where you listen to podcasts, and it has the audio of this particular overview, our weekly forecasts, and then the teachings from our Rise and Align series, plus guest interviews and all kinds of other things that are happening over there on the podcast. So if you want more of this, then be sure to check out the podcast. You'll find the links down into the description for that, plus our July lunar journal, which I'll talk about when we start talking about the moon, the moons, I should say, this month. Okay, here we go. Diving on in. First off, we want to do what I like to call is the state of the planets. And the state of the planets is just letting us know where everybody's at, where we're beginning this month. So as you can see, everybody's pretty spread out, although we are mostly moving into this top half here where we are in, most of the planets are in the signs that are on this half here of the circle. And when we look at this, we are looking at this at the particular time of day of 12 p.m. So this is just showing where we are kicking off here on July 1st at 12 p.m. So it doesn't mean all the planets are up like this. This just happens to be where they are right now as I'm looking at this chart. So we begin with our sun here, which is conjunct Jupiter, but the sun is in its last days with Jupiter. It will be leaving. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. But we've got our sun in Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini, Uranus over here conjunct Venus. That's a newer conjunction we've been talking about. We'll see that for a little bit longer. In Taurus, we've got Chiron over here in Aries. We've got Neptune, Saturn in Pisces, and those guys are conjunct. We talked about that last month. We've got North Node here in Aquarius, Pluto down here in Capricorn. We've got our moon kicking off this month here in Virgo, South Node in Leo, Mars in Leo, and Mercury in Cancer. So let's dive in with our sun. Now, as I did mention here, we do have that conjunction with Jupiter that we've been talking about since June. So mid-June, the sun and Jupiter came together in the conjunction, and we're going to see that conjunction happen for just a few more days, and that is until July 2nd. July 2nd, we'll see this conjunction fall off. We will also see the sextile over here that we have seen with Mars since the 12th. Since the 11th of June. We'll see that fall off on the 12th. So I'm going to come on over here to the 12th. You will see that the conjunction with Jupiter fell off. We've got Gemini here. The sun is at Gemini, 26 degrees. We're still here in this Mars sextile, which will be falling off, but we do see some new things forming, and that in particular is this square over to Chiron. So we'll see this square over to Chiron, and I want to bring this to your attention because anytime we talk about Chiron, this is always talking about some deep wounding and some deep healing. Now, when we look at a square with the sun and Chiron, we're talking more about identity here. So wounds around self-identity, how you view yourself, because the sun does rule over that kind of main component, right? It's who we are at the core. And so there's a lot of potential here for some deep healing around self-identity and the way that you see yourself. So this will bring to light some wounds around self-worth and expression, self-expression. It's the perfect time to look at your own self-worth and how you are viewing yourself. Communication, obviously, since we are in Gemini, this is a really good time to look at that self-expression. We just had that new moon, right? New moon in Gemini, which was really bringing up that expanded vision of expression and communication. And then here we have this square over here with Chiron, really bringing those into the awareness for us to really expand and release some of those outdated ideas and beliefs that we have about ourselves around expression and what we can say and what we can't say. So really beautiful time. And we'll see this square over here until the 24th of July. So really good time here to work through a lot of those. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is on the 16th, the sun is going to move out of Gemini, and you'll see here that it moves into Cancer. So we're entering Cancer season. We're ending Gemini season here in July. Cancer season in sidereal astrology. Remember, we're talking sidereal astrology, which is different than our tropical friends. Our tropical friends, I believe we are already here as we kick off July in Cancer. But in sidereal, as we look up at the sky, if we were to take our telescopes, look up at the sky, we will see that it is just still moving at this point, July 1st in Gemini. And by the time we get to mid-July here, it'll move out of Gemini and into Cancer. So I do want to tell you a little bit about what that is, because that's going to be the last half of this month and the first part of August, the sun will move through Cancer. So because we have been moving through this really social, active, communicative energy with Gemini, when the sun moves into Cancer, things are going to change a bit. Life is going to become more emotional, more nostalgic. It's going to be centered more around home, more around family, and creating more of our inner security, our inner stability of self. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the energy really encourages more introspection and connection to our emotions, our own emotional sensitivity, how we protect ourselves, how we protect our people, our loved ones. And so we're going to see this really start to play out for all of us, right, over the next 4 weeks as the sun moves through Cancer. So this is a time for us to really honor our feelings, honor how we take care of ourselves. So this is top priority here for Cancer is going to be to nurture self. The classic phrase of, you put your oxygen mask on first and then you support your loved ones. And it's that idea because in Cancer, it's such a supportive energy that it wants to support and nurture family, loved ones, friends. Like it wants to be there and nurture and support people. The one challenge that we can have here, one of many, I should say, is that we want to take care of others that we don't take care of ourselves. Now, I like to look at this from a seasonal standpoint, right? Let's look at it from a bigger season. Summer season kicked off during Gemini, which Gemini is that more social, active, let's get out and connect and network and hang out with each other. And then it moves into Cancer, which is now I want to be with my loved ones. I want to support, I want to take care of, right? And then we'll move out of Cancer and we'll move into Leo, which is going to be like, I want to be seen, I want to be heard. And so this is a little bit of a shifting from that active energy that is very social and learning and communicative and now wants to be more supportive. And if we look at the summer season, that's definitely what happens. There's many barbecues, gatherings, vacations that involve the family unit. Now, whether that is, you and your kids, you and your parents, you and the people that you consider family, right? That is that wanting to connect with people and wanting to deepen and support each other and take care of each other is really what this period moves into. And so there is this emotional sensitivity that I do want to caution you around because it is a little bit more sensitive. We are a little bit more sensitive during this time. And so we want to honor that. We want to honor the emotions that we're feeling. We want to acknowledge the things that we might get triggered by. I'm not saying that you will ever not be triggered. My intention is to be able to move through that trigger much faster, receive its lesson, and move forward. It's not that I'm not ever going to get triggered. My friend, I get triggered all the time, but it's how I'm moving through it. It's how I'm viewing even triggers and the people that are triggering me. That whole energy has shifted for me. And so I love to use this season, I should say, Cancer season, to allow myself some space to process emotions, to process what is coming up. I probably sit with my journal. I probably sit in meditation and rest more so than I do other times of the year, especially since Cancer is my moon is in Cancer, and it's just such a beautiful time to replenish myself. Breath work, dream work, there's a lot that tends to happen so that we're allowing ourselves to ride the emotional waves that we may be going through. This is why the first step inside the inner alchemy method is to really ground into our bodies. It's where we start to create a sense of groundedness within ourselves so that we can start excavating, we can start going in and pulling out what needs to be pulled out and brought into awareness. But before we do that, we have to take the time to establish some sense of grounding within ourselves. And that's where breath work has been such a big shift for me in allowing myself to come into the body more, to understand how my body is responding and reacting to things. And so allowing those emotions to process through me and ride the wave of emotions that are coming through. It's also a really good time to reflect on what feels safe and what feels secure and creating that in your world. There might be environments where you feel extremely safe. There might be environments where you don't feel safe. And my friend, I would challenge you to look at, why does an environment not feel safe? I'm not telling you that you need to go put yourself in unsafe environments. I would never say that. But I also want you to go higher than this idea of, oh, it's unsafe, I don't want to be there. I want you to challenge yourself to think of, to look at, why do you feel this environment is unsafe? What might you be projecting onto this environment? What are you receiving from this environment that might give you some type of indication that it isn't a safe environment? Just as I would invite you to look at on the other side, what makes this environment feel safe? Why do these people make you feel safe? What is it about you that you're needing to feel in an environment in order to feel safe? These are all really good things that you can explore this season. Another one would be compassion, setting boundaries to protect your potential retreats, your potential processing. I think a lot of the times boundaries was probably one of the biggest things that I had to learn myself, was how to create boundaries first off, and then the second layer of that is evaluating my boundaries to see, are these boundaries being created from trauma, from wounds, or are they being created from love? It's something that I've explored over and over as I look at my own boundaries and create my own systems. Some of the other day, I'm reading the book Rich Relationships by Selena Sue. If you have not read that book and you were in business, my friend, I highly recommend it, especially if you struggle with networking or if you struggle with building relationships. She gives you such a beautiful way to look at it and to approach it. And one of the things that came up for me is that this is a boundary that I had set, and I'm very protective of my time, and I'm very protective of the people that I interact with. And what this book has helped me realize is that there is a piece of that boundary that is coming from a wounding, that it needs to be healed. I mentioned to one of my good friends that I needed to, as I was reading this book, because we're reading this book together, shout out to Christine Moe with Cohesive Confidence. She's also been on the podcast. I mentioned to her, like, oh, I realized that I'm not creating enough time to nurture relationships that I have. And she's like, well, isn't that a boundary? And I was like, yes, absolutely. It's a boundary. It's a boundary I've had for years to protect my energy because I needed to. I was such a people pleaser and so giving to everybody else that I was depleting myself. And so I put up very strong boundaries of my time. And I was like, I have to reevaluate those because I'm not looking to approach these relationships where I'm going back into that habit of people pleasing. But I'm also not going to look at these as the way that I looked at them in the past. And I'm not looking at my time in the way that I've looked at it in the past. I'm still going to honor my own self. And I think I needed those very strong boundaries to create that sense of confidence in myself, in that I can sustain myself. I can take care of myself. I don't need other people to fill my needs. I can do that for myself and come from that place now as I approach these relationships, where before they were very much a needy relationship and in some ways very codependent. And that's not the person I am now. And so that has to shift, right? And so I would invite you, if you have created some boundaries in the area of relationships, to maybe reevaluate those and see, is there a part of that that still needs to be healed? Is that version of you no longer need this boundary? Is there a new boundary that you can now create? The other thing I would say that's really good to look at during Cancer season is reflecting on the past and bringing some closure, not to get stuck in the past, but to bring closure, especially around wounds with females, with women, whether that's a mother wound, a sister wound, a friend wound, which is one of the things that I'm definitely going to look at as I move into Cancer season and look at the boundaries in my relationships. Is there's some past experiences still that are affecting me now that I can look at and resolve. So just some things to consider. The other thing I will say, and I'm going to do a whole podcast about Cancer season and dive into a lot of this more, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a tidbit here so that you can start to explore this for yourself. Focusing on how you're nurturing your community, how you're giving back to your community, creating that bond and that emotional connection is key during this period. Also creating experiences where you can nurture your community. What might that look like for you? Honoring your rhythm. In are there times for you to take breaks? You know, if we look at our natal charts, there are certain seasons of the year outside of our regular natural seasons, but there's our own personal rhythm that we can look at. And is this the time for you to take a break, or is this time where you're gearing up? For some of us, this is a more internal time, where for others of us, this is a very external time, and it's go, 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 put it out there, in not in a hustle way, but in a very active, energetic way. The other thing I would say is reconnecting to why you started your business. Why are you here? What is your mission? What is your purpose here in the work that you do? Reconnecting with that why. And as always, making sure that your containers, the places where you hold people in whatever way that is, whether you sell a product or a service, whether it's digital or in person, how are your containers set up to hold people, to give people what it is that your mission is, right? How are you able to deliver that through those containers? All right, let's move on from our sun in Cancer. If you're looking forward to Cancer season like me, let me know down below in the comments. All right, or come on over to Instagram. Come on over, talk to me on Instagram at Danie C Muniz, DANIECMUNIZ. Okay, the other ones I want to talk about is a couple of things that we're having. We are still going to have, and let me go over to the 18th. You're going to see we have this trine over here to Saturn and Neptune, since these guys are hanging out together. And you'll notice that their numbers are red. That means they are in retrograde. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. But these guys, I want to talk about this, and you'll see even more why we're talking about this when we get to those retrogrades. But let me tell you a little bit about what these trines are, because these trines are connecting really beautifully together to support each other. So there's a lot of, with Neptune, a lot of imagination, like being able to connect beyond the veil, being able to connect with source, with God, with creation, really allowing us to step deeper into our spiritual practices, our spiritual connection, allowing that creativity or maybe even artistic expression to come out of us. Psychic abilities tend to be, like, our intuition tends to be heightened during these times. Now with Saturn, there's more of a sense of creating structure, responsibility, patience, persistence, determination, like a lot of that energy. And so you might find there's more of feeling a responsibility for something here and being able to pass that information on. You know, Saturn's like the daddy of the zodiac. And so it's always wanting to pass on its information to the next one, right? The future generation, so to speak. And those will be through the end of the month, through the 29th. Now, one of the other ones I want to talk about is the Sun conjunct Mercury. And we're going to see this come in here at the very end of the month. We're going to see this conjunction. You will also notice that we've got Mercury here, who is in red. His numbers are red, which means he is also retrograde. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. But we've got Mercury retrograde as it brings this conjunction to the Sun. So we're going to see this for the very edge of July into August. And I want to note it here because it is in retrograde, for one, and two, it, whenever the Sun and Mercury are together, there tends to be more of us able to think more quickly, to have more ideas, to be more curious and adaptable with things, and a good time to communicate and share. So as we look at in a bit about what this particular retrograde is, because it is in Cancer, we might find ourselves being able to think and speak more clearly, which from the retrograde position means that we're going to be able to look at our own internal world, which is probably the most important world to look at, because our inner world reflects our outer world, right? Our personal reality. And so we always want to pay attention first to what is going on inside in our inner world, because that is what is going to be reflected in our outer world. People ask me all the time, like, how do I know how do I discover beliefs that are hidden from me, right? How do I do that? I'm like, look at your world, your reality, right? That is what's dictated, is what's going on inside. So if you see fear out in the world, then that's reflected inside, right? There's some type of fear going on internally that we want to look at, right? All right, let's talk about our moons this month. We've got our full moon in Sagittarius happening on the 10th. So let me come over here to the 10th. And we've got the full moon in Sagittarius. So this is actually going to take place in the afternoon, about 3:37 p.m. Central Time on the 10th of July. So with Sagittarius, we're always talking about truth. We're talking about freedom, freedom to explore. We're talking about expanding things, right? It's ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is that go big, go home type energy. So the truth becomes your freedom here, and your freedom is your greatest teacher. It's time with this particular full moon to step fully into your role as the wisdom keeper, as the way shower, as the hermit, as the one who is the guide, who is the mentor. That's very much this Sagittarius energy, along with some of the things that we have going on here. You'll see the sextile over here to our north node. You'll also see the trine over here. I'm sorry, hold on, let's go to the time to get really specific here. There we go. The sextile over here to Mars. And so there's a lot of action. We talk about Mars as being action oriented, to step into a beautiful, beautiful energy of being the wisdom keeper, being that guide or that mentor. So this is arriving at a time right before Neptune's about to go retrograde, and before Saturn and Neptune go retrograde. So this is a really beautiful time for us to have that claiming of our way as the mentor, and using our voice, using our vision, and sharing that. So we worked on that a lot during Gemini season, right? And here with this full moon in Sagittarius, it's letting go of the playing small and stepping into even more, into that bigger vision, right? We started to play with that in Gemini, and now we're really truly stepping into it here. So my friend, I would invite you to step into claiming your authority in whatever it is that you are an authority in, whatever it is in the way in which you do the thing that you do, really claiming that for yourself. This energy here is more of the movement. It's not the business, it's the movement. It's the bigger thing that you are creating, and it's activating that vision here with this full moon. All right, let's talk about there are some questions that we can explore here around our voice. And that is, some of the things that I like to look at is, how has my life journey become the curriculum for my work, for the thing that I do? And whether you're looking at a product, a service based business, the idea is still the same. Like, how does that come into the things that you are creating? If you are a product-based business, how is that coming in? How has the things that you have done allowed yourself to get to this point to be able to create? right? What are your truths? What are your truths that you want to share? There might be some philosophies that you have about life. Like, how can you bring those into your work? Looking at some of the things with the South Node and our karmic connections to things, you can look at gifts from your past experience, past lives, your ancestors that you're ready to share here now, that you're ready to bring forward to your community, to your people. With the North Node, what opportunities are around you or are present for you, or can you create for expanding and using that in a very aligned way with your purpose, with your mission? You might look at the action for Mars and saying, what bold move have I been thinking about? And I'm ready to take a step into, right? It doesn't have to be a huge step. It can be a little baby step into the thing. Now, this energy is asking you to go big or go home. But if you feel like you want to take that next small step, then my friend, what is that next small step? Sit down and identify that. All right, let's talk about this new moon in Cancer, because as I mentioned earlier, we are shifting out of Gemini and into Cancer. And so our new moon in Cancer takes place on the 24th. You'll see that here. And this is at 2:12 p.m. Central Time. We've got our new moon at 7 degrees here. Now, this is creating more of that inner sanctuary, that inner self that we talked about earlier with the Cancer energy, and really creating that confidence within self, the stability within self, the foundations, so that we can feel good, feel confident, feel steady in bringing things out there. Because it's one thing to have the vision and to start taking action on it, but then if our body is not in alignment, if our emotions are not connected to it, if we are not stepping into rooms. And I heard this on a podcast this weekend from Lewis Howes and Jasmine Starr. Lewis Howes was on Jasmine Starr's podcast, and he was talking about how, he's more of an extrovert and she's more of an introvert. And she was like, what is it? What is it that you do when you walk into these rooms? And he was like, it's before I even get there. Before I even get into the room, I'm preparing myself to show up in passion. I'm preparing myself to show up in joy. And it's like, I'm bringing this to this space. And so this is what we can do here is, how are we creating this within ourselves? What might need to shift out of here to be able to bring that for ourselves into the world? So some of the things that we can look at with this particular new moon is creating that safe space within ourselves, creating that the physical and the energetic spaces that support our work, that support the work we're doing, but also our deep work, making sure we're creating time to do that deep work. That's oftentimes, I hear from my clients is like, I don't know Danie, I had no idea. I was thinking about what I'm going to talk to you on the way here, or what we can talk about. And then by the time we get to the end of our session, they're like, wow, I didn't realize there was so much to explore. And that's because, right, we take the time to do this. Had you not taken the time to sit, right, for those 90 minutes, you would not have realized what was sitting there, what was underneath the surface that wanted to come out and is affecting you, right, is affecting your outer world. The next thing would be emotional authority in claiming that, in setting intentions to trust your emotional intelligence, right? Sometimes we get hits, we get downloads, we get ideas, and what happens is we don't trust them, right? Or we dismiss them, or we go against them. And here, really, and that's what I do inside the inner work, the inner alchemy method, is to do that. Doing that inner work is being able to clear out the gunk and feeling like you can trust yourself once again. Leadership is also like your own leadership style and how you do things. Not everybody's the same leader, right? Everybody has their own way of leading, and it's really allowing your own natural gifts to come through, and creating healthy boundaries around that. Integrating your ancestral lines, your lineages from your past soul experiences, your soul lineage, as well as this particular ancestral lineage, right? And how we can heal some of those wounds and bring the strengths forward. A lot of the times we talk about healing the ancestral line, right? The trauma from our ancestors. There's a lot of strength in those as well. And how do we bring that forward? And then the last thing I would say from a more business perspective is making sure that you're taking those times and setting those cycles up for your own natural flow of how you work and how you like. We'll set more of that up when we get to Virgo season, but really starting to create from that emotional place of, it's why I talk about the moon a lot and how to follow that rhythm and ride the wave through the moon every single month, because it's on its own wavelength and we can get to tune into it and use that as our most productive tool. If you're looking for a productivity hack, follow the moon. Follow the moon. All right, let's dive into this Mercury retrograde in Cancer, and then we'll dive into a couple of other things that we're seeing with Mercury, Mars, and Venus. Okay, so let's go over here to Mercury. And Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 17th. We'll see it go retrograde, I'm sorry, on the 22nd, not the 17th. That's when it ends, on July 7th. July 17th is when it goes. I have to look at my notes here. July 18th is when it goes retrograde. There we go. There we go. And it will be retrograde until August 10th. Okay, so we start here. We are going to be retrograde in Cancer. You've heard me talk a lot about Cancer energy. So during the Mercury retrograde, we are connecting the emotions and the thought patterns. This is such a beautiful time. I love when Mercury goes retrograde in Cancer because we are connecting the thinking mind and the emotional body. So the mental body and the emotional body, they get to really connect with each other. And so the work that you might do on the mental plane, right? So like reframing, mindset, that we also want to then take that into the emotional body. And how does the emotional body feel about that reframe? A lot of times I hear people talking about, let's reframe, let's reframe, let's reframe. What's a reframe? It's a different story. And I'm all about that, my friend. I can 100% believe in shifting mindset. The thing that we get to do here with this particular retrograde, which is super powerful, is how then is the body feeling about these reframes? Because if the emotional body is not connected to this reframe, if it cannot feel it, and it feel empowering or joyful or exciting, then it is going to reject it, right? And then on the next layer, we get to the physical body, to the physical plane, right? So we start at the mental plane, we move into the emotional body, and then we move into the physical plane, right? The three there. That's where we really see the transformation and the new way of being, the new identity, and the new actions and the new reality that goes with it, right? So we always want to make sure that all three are in alignment. And during this particular Cancer Mercury retrograde, this is a really great time to connect those and to really connect into that emotional inner self. Like, what is the emotional body? Is the emotional body tired? Is it frustrated? Is it loving and supportive? Like, is it overgiving? Where is the emotional body? How is it feeling about the things and the shifts that we are making? This is also a really good time to look at your own emotional waves. How are you reacting, or are you responding to the triggers that might be coming up for you? Those are all really good things to take into account as we move through the retrograde period. Now, from a more 3D idea, Mercury retrogrades are always going to cause some type of challenge for us potentially in travel, in communication. So, because we're also talking about Cancer here, and that energy is connected to the feminine, particularly to the women in our lives, and mostly the family unit. I'm going to caution you, my friend, that there could be some challenges that you have during this Mercury retrograde season in Cancer with females in your life, with mom, sister, aunt, cousin, friend, daughter. We might see some of these situations, some of these challenges, especially the old, right, past stories, past ways of being, past things coming into light here. Be aware, my friend. Again, these are coming up for you to take a look at, to notice the deeper layer in, to heal some of these relationships. So, although we've got this really beautiful idea of looking at the reframes and filling them into the emotional body and making that really beautiful connection, we also could be challenged with some of these relationships that we have with other women in our lives. So, just something to that feminine energy is very strong during this particular Cancer retrograde. And so remember that retrograde will be through the 8th, the 10th of August, and then we'll see it continue to move through Cancer, and it's not going to leave out of Cancer for a bit. So I just want to remind you that even though we'll be out of the retrograde in August, we're still going to see a lot of that still kind of coming through most of August. Okay. The last thing we're going to get into here, or the next thing, I'm sorry, not the last thing, is let's talk a little bit about Mars. So Mars, it is going to be connecting to a couple of different planets throughout the month. The one I do want to talk about is the connection with Uranus, and we're going to see kind of all of these start to happen at that towards the end of the month, and so we'll really see them more so in August, and that is both with this trine over here to Uranus, as well as the oppositions to Saturn and Neptune, which come in here on the 31st. So we'll see these guys come in at the very, very end, where we are going to create some challenges here with Mars in Virgo and being over here, making its opposition with those Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So we are going to see those come in at the very end of the month. I'll talk more about them as we get closer to them, but just wanted to kind of give you this little bit of a foreshadowing of these guys are coming, and they are going to create some tension as we enter August. Now, before we move on to Venus, I do want to talk about, because Mars is in Leo, but you'll notice here that it is 1 degree Virgo. So we're going to go back here to the 29th. You'll see that Mars moves into Virgo. So most of this month, it's going to be in Leo. And so we saw Mars move into Leo at the very, oh, I just realized I'm not sharing my screen. My friend, why didn't you tell me? Here we go. So now you can see that Mars is in Virgo here on the 29th. So it has been in Leo, and Leo has been a lot of that action, that confidence, that creative courage, really heart-centered ambition, leadership, right? Those are all very playful energy with Leo, and just taking that really beautiful action. When it gets into Virgo, though, here on the 29th, it's going to shift just a bit because Virgo is our energy of more perfectionism, perfecting things, being precise and productive, where Leo has been very creative and flair and artistic energy. Virgo is like, let's get things in order. Let's create these systems. And there's a lot of attention towards self-improvement, health and wellness. And so it's going to shift just a bit. So this is a time for us to kind of upgrade some of the habits, some of the daily things that we do. It can spark some anxiety, some burnout, some obsession, especially on how perfect you're doing something, or the way in which you did something. And so we can really channel this energy with discipline and tons and tons and tons of compassion, my friend. And so we'll talk more about that because that will be at the very end here of July, all the way through the middle of September. So we've got quite a bit of energy around that. All right, last one in this area before we get to those retrogrades with those outer planets is Venus. So I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we are seeing with Venus. And I do want to touch on the very beginning. We're going to see the connection over here with Neptune and Saturn. So again, these guys are together, and so they are really pulling some powerful energy in. And this is just going to be that first half of this month from the first of, well, let's talk about the first half, because the first half of this month, she is going to be in a sextile to these guys. And then the later half of the month, she's going to be in a square to these guys. So let's go to the first half here on the first, where we see these sextiles. So she, at the very beginning of the month, I call her she because she's a very feminine energy. There's a lot of companionship energy, feeling valued, new relationships, especially with Saturn, which is very grounded in practical relationships. Here, it's like that energy of being very practical and solid. And then with Neptune, here at the beginning of the month, there's more deeper sensitivity and connection. This is more of like shopping and having fun and creating more luxurious things, having these outlets where you can express yourself creatively, really allowing like our personal style more to come out with that Neptune, and kind of just really friendly, fun type energy here with both of these guys. Now at the end of the month, as I mentioned, we're going to see that energy shift. And that is when she makes a square to these guys. And this starts on the 27th. So at the very end of the month, we see that energy shift. So the very beginning, from the 7th through the 11th, or the 1st through the 11th, we'll see this very fun, creative, connection type energy. And then we're going to put a little bit of a stressor into here. A lot of criticism can come through here. Fears can come through here. Delays can come through there. Relationship problems, a little stress on the relationship can really come in here, especially with Saturn, because Saturn tends to bring out those limitations and those boundaries. And so there might be some things that maybe we kind of overlooked at the beginning of the month, and now we're like, oh, this is annoying, right? This is no, because I don't like this, or we might be getting fears or criticisms from others here. So it might be a little bit more drama here with Saturn, and then with Neptune, there might be some insecurity, right? We might be feeling down about ourselves. We might feel that people are looking at us in a weird or odd way. We might feel disappointed in our partnership or in our partner, or the way in which they're doing something. That over idealizing is kind of gone. The rose colored glasses are gone, and we're seeing things more realistically, and that can put a damper on some things. So I do want to give you that, because not just in relationships, although Venus does rule over relationships, but this is also in money. This is also in our value and how we value ourselves. And so I want to bring this in here because it might feel really good at the very beginning of the month. And at the end of the month, you're like, wait, what? What am I doing? Now, the last thing here with Venus I want to talk about is she does move into Gemini. You'll see here, on the 26th, she moves into Gemini. So she's moving out of Taurus, where she's been, and Taurus is her home, right? She rules over Taurus. So she's been having, really fun, just taking it all in, just really nurturing herself and all the things. And then she gets to Gemini and she gets extremely curious, and she's driven more by mental connection to people and to things. And so there's a flip here, right? When we talk about Gemini, it's such a more mental energy. It's an air sign. So there's more playfulness here. She gets a little bit more flirty and playful. She wants to attract things that are more mindful and smart and connected and bring more insight to her. So she's very, very attracted to the mind during this time. Very lighthearted, playful, curious, such a big spontaneity, just doing things out of the blue. Like, so you might find like there's this curiosity and there's playfulness and just wanting to do things out of the blue, especially as it relates to like more social things. So like last minute things where normally you might be like, nope, not happening. Especially with Taurus, you're like, nope, I'm already got my comfy clothes on. I got my popcorn. I'm good to go. Where with Gemini, it's more of like, yeah, let's go. I want to go. Right? I want to go hang out, or I want to go do something. All right, let's talk about, and again, my friends, I'll talk more about these as we get to these week by week. I'm just here to give you kind of that overview, because if I went through every single thing that was happening, man, this would be a very, very long video, as it is already a long video. Okay, Neptune. So let's talk about Neptune, because Neptune and Saturn are both going retrograde about a week apart. And then we're also going to see Chiron go retrograde at the very end of July as well. So let's talk just really quick about Neptune, as Neptune is going retrograde on July 4th. So for us here in the United States, that is our Independence Day, right? And so it's very interesting that Independence Day, July 4th, Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces. So Neptune in Pisces really represents the disillusion of illusions. This is spiritual awakening, right? This is the need to separate fantasy from reality, which can be a little bit hard sometimes, right? Well, during this retrograde, this is an energy that turns inward. And this is more for some deep spiritual understanding, my friend. We are coming into self. So let's talk about this. So Neptune, from a more personal growth, self-mastery, here's some opportunities for you to question your beliefs, your practices, the things that you might have accepted as truth. This is a time for you to look at where might you have been disillusioned? Where might you have maybe trusted something that is not indeed truth, right? And truth for whatever that is for you, right? Truth is different for different people. This is a time for you to clear away any fog, any haziness, any confusion around anything that you are around your own personal feelings, right? And especially with that Cancer energy, your own intuition, what is blocking your intuition? How do you receive information? That's such a big thing here with this particular retrograde, is you can look at how am I receiving information? How can I trust the information that I'm receiving? Purifying things, stripping away things that are inauthentic to you, so that that true authentic expression can come out. Boundaries is also noticing where there's empathy and emotional absorption, right? Where you're just taking things on. And because empathy is such a beautiful thing about being human. And also, we don't want to take, we don't have to, we don't need to. The goal isn't to take it all on. And that's one of the things I think, as a highly sensitive person myself and a very empathic person, is that I've had to learn, right, to create that boundary where I am not absorbing other people's stuff. Now, some things with Neptune from a business standpoint is redefining your business vision, looking at it. Is this still on track with you? Are there some things that you need to shift? Is it grounded in a reality, right? Is it grounded in a reality, or are we just thinking to think and dreaming to dream? But are we truly putting some action behind it? Like stripping away the stuff that's not working and just being really honest about what is working and what actions are working for us best. Now, let's take a look at Saturn here, because as I mentioned, Saturn is going to be going retrograde, and we'll see Saturn go retrograde. And just so you know, she does go retrograde Neptune later here in the day. You see it right there, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She's going to go retrograde. Now, let's take a look at Saturn, who is going to go retrograde on the 13th. There we go. Now, Saturn, and so first off, Neptune is going to be retrograde until the 9th of December, and Saturn will be retrograde until November 28th. So about a week apart. Saturn's going to end its retrograde sooner, about a week sooner than Neptune. So these will pretty much be retrograde together for the next few months. So Saturn has been in Pisces, right? Moved into Pisces earlier this year, and it is combining that idea of structure, foundations with spirituality, asking us to really start to infuse solid foundations, right, or spiritual practices into those solid foundations, spirituality, right? And we're seeing a lot of this in our world, but this is also from a business standpoint of how are we building solid foundations for our dreams, for our missions and our visions. In this retrograde, right, the retrograde gives us an opportunity to review what we've done, how we've been doing that, what we haven't been doing, right, and creating discipline for our own spiritual connection, our own creative outlets. How are we allowing for that, right? Are we taking the time to sit and connect to spirit, to God, to source, to universe, to creator? Like, how are we doing that? How are we doing that? Have we been saying we're doing it and not doing it? Have we been wanting to do it and not doing it? Have we been fully listening? Have we been fully following the practices that help us feel a deeper sense of connection? Whatever that is for you, my friend, whether that's going to a church or going to a space where you meet in community to do these practices, or whether you're doing it by yourself at home, whatever that is for you, my friend, like what is that? And so looking at that spiritual discipline, your spiritual practices, you're looking at your spiritual beliefs, like what is it that you believe and how does that show up in your life? Taking accountability of your own emotional patterns and reactions to things, creating boundaries from love and compassion. And, from the entrepreneurial standpoint, looking at your systems, looking at how things are structured and how are they creating the space for you to do the other things that you want to do. I just listened to a podcast by Jenna Kutcher about her summer of systems and how her team is looking at creating what she's calling playbooks, which are standard operating procedures for how a particular role in your business functions or works, or the tasks, right, that one might do. So that's something definitely to look at during this season. Also looking at how you can grow, like how are you building things so that it can grow. I know as somebody who did or has done one-on-one work for a very long time, there's only so much one-on-one work that I can do, that model has to shift so that I can grow as a business, right? To create more, to do more of the things that I want to do in the business, where I'm not locked into, days full of one-on-one sessions, but I have another outlet that I can do to, support more people, right? My mission is to help more people, then how can I create that? Your teams, creating teams and the boundaries within the team. What does that look like? Boundaries with your clients or your customers. What does that look like? Are you available 24/7, which you should never be, my friend? But what are those expectations and how do you kind of lay those out? And also looking at that bigger vision. All right, last one I want to look at here is Chiron. Chiron's retrograde, which as I mentioned is coming in here on the 30th of July and will be through the 1st, listen here, the 1st of 2026. So we've got this all the way through, taking us through the beginning of 2026. So this is our past wounds, right? Our trauma, our wounding from the past. And so this is going to be more focused on identity, leadership, and personal power, because we're talking about Aries here. Chiron, let me share my screen again. I just keep forgetting to share my screen. There we go. We've got Chiron here, retrograde, right here on the 30th. And in Aries, it is more of that self-identity, that leadership, and that personal power. So this is a time for you to really take a look at healing some of those wounds around who you are, right? And your own personal power, taking back your power, right? A lot of the times we give our power away to different things, other people, social media, um, uh, beliefs, right? We give our power away to a lot of different things, but really bringing back that power, transforming those wounds of rejection or failure into something that is more courageous and brave, that feels more like us, learning ways to express our anger, to stand up for ourselves in a very healthy way, right? Not from a wounding, but from a very healthy way. In the entrepreneur space, in our business space, this is looking at allowing ourselves time to heal any wounds we might have around imposter syndrome, or being the leader or the authority in our niche or in the thing that we do, developing our own leadership skills in being able to lead people, to have authority, to be seen, to even be seen as successful, blocks around standing out, right? Visibility. And then also our personal brand, right? Our own personal brand, the wounds that prevent us from really showing up as our authentic selves, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, my life is boring. Nobody wants to see my life." Well, actually, we all do. And I love to see people that I think are, super successful, and they show me their life and I'm like, oh, it's just like mine. It seems pretty boring, but it's just very simple, right? And we'd love to see that. We'd love to see that. So, my friend. All right, we've got a really powerful triple retrograde here that gives us a really beautiful time to really look at that vision with Neptune, to create the structures with Saturn, and to allow ourselves to come back into our personal power with Chiron in Aries. So really creating this really beautiful, time for us to really step into what it is that we are calling in forward 2026, and doing the work now so that we're ready to go as we enter 2026. So that is this last half of the year as that retrograde. And my friend, this has been your July Sidereal Astrology Forecast for 2025. I hope that you have enjoyed this forecast. There is a couple things I do want to tell you about. Number one is our July lunar journal. You can get our July lunar journal down below. There's a link that you can go to thepeaceteacher.com/lunar journal, and you can download the July lunar journal that'll talk about both of these new moon and full moons that we have in July. It'll also give you some journal prompts to kind of go through and to help you explore some of the things that we talked about with both of those moons. It also talks about the lunar cycle and how to work with it so that you can, and it goes week by week. So you can see for the full July, like what to focus on this first week, second week, third week, fourth week, in relation to these months as well. I've gotten some feedback on it, and so we added that in for the lunar journal for July. And if you have other things that you'd like to see in the lunar journal, let me know. I'm open to creating whatever it is that you need, my friend, to help navigate each month and each lunar cycle. We also have a second thing I want to tell you about is our inner authority call. That is a one-on-one call with me personally to really look at, as you see, we have so much energy this month, which is also opportunities for us to look at what is leading, who is leading, what belief, what story, what past experience is still leading our lives as we are creating, right, our futures in whatever way that is for you. And whatever it is, maybe you're like, I'm not sure what's in the future for me. I'm just so cluttered, right? And so we can clear that out and make some space. And so on that call, it's definitely what we'll do is see what's leading the way, what's blocking, what's getting in your way from being able to do the thing that you want to do. We'll also look at your astrology chart just to look at what season you're in as far as that natural rhythm is concerned, so you know where you are in the season. Is this a go-in season, or is this a stillness season? And really define what that is for you, and then also receive any information on any karmic connections or past lives that are looking to be either integrated or retrieved at this time. So, my friend, I am so blessed and honored to do these calls. I love doing these calls. It's one of my favorite things to do. We'll also explore anything in any ways that I can help support you on your journey. So if you are looking for somebody to do that deeper soul work with, to guide you into that inner work, I would love to support you in any way that I possibly can. And we can talk about what that might look like on that call. All right, my friend, have a great rest of your day. Be sure to check out the description for all the links to everything that I talked about, and probably more in there. Or if you just want to put a comment down below or reach out to me over on Instagram, I would love, love, love to hear from you. All right, my friend, that wraps us up. Until next time, remember to keep shining your unique light.